Hello everyone, welcome back to the arena. I'm Miss, and with me is Bas, and this is Entropic Thunder in blue versus NC Dot in red. And NC Dot did bring the flagship, its Colonel Kurtz in the Bargest. And yeah, Bas, can you tell me about these setups? What did they bring?
So NC Dot have brought a fairly, I'd say, cookie cutter again, shield missile comp with Drake Navy issues, Cerberus, and Orthrus, 2 Kirins, and 2 Jackdaws. So it's sort of a variation on the theme here. You see all these sort of Cerberus, Orthrus, Skeeler, Drake Navy issues, Nighthawks, all these sort of ships, fairly interchangeable. And this looks like a fairly standard comp like that. Whereas Flaming Dragons, or Entropic Thunder, otherwise known, on the other side, have brought something very, very different. They've brought 2 Lashaks, I believe the first Lashaks of the day, and a Neros of Prophecy, 3 Confessors, 2 Purifiers, and a Punisher.
Yes, both teams walked in fairly long range. NC Dot are all at the 50, while with the Flaming Dragons team are at staggered ranges with their battleships and tackle being at 30 and support ships at 50. And yeah, the NC Dot is having these Kirin's Logi frigates, and they can direct take 2 ships, so they got a weakness to EM damage. And look at that, the Flaming Dragons have 3 Confessors, fast cruisers with strong lasers. So this could maybe something the Entropic Thunder team can utilize on to get out these Logi frigates.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really, really critical for these Confessors, what they can do in this match, what they can contribute, whether they can keep things pinned down for these Lashaks, because obviously the Lashaks need to get on top of them and start ramping up. And if they're not able to do that, it severely hampers their effectiveness. But I'm also particularly worried for these Purifiers here. I mean, if you're in a Purifier and you land on grid and you see 2 Jackdaws, 2 Cerberuses, and Orthrus, you're thinking you're possibly not long for this world. And these Purifiers obviously pump out torpedo damage, huge amounts of damage for the point investment. And yeah, it's going to be a huge task for Daniel Sunkist in the Oneros to keep them alive. But if he can do it, the payoff could be enormous.
Yeah, so key thing in this match, I believe, is what the mid slots are. Like if you can put weapon disruptions on these missile ships, you might be able to easier keep your bombers alive. And likewise, if you get tracking disruptors on the Lashaks, you can keep your smaller ships alive. And the match has begun, and we're seeing like the NC team like pulling back and spreading out a bit. And in the meantime, the Entropic Thunder, they are also pulling back with the small ships, while the bigger ships are trying to push in. They're taking damage on the Jiangxian in the Confessor, and Julius and the other Confessor also taking heavy damage. Like the Lucky Pilot have to be really fast, otherwise these are going down.
Yeah, and of course these are armor boats, so rep supply at the end of the cycle, so you're very, very tight on time, and the first Confessor does go down, and this is so critical for Entropic Thunder. They want to stay compact, so everyone arrives on the scene at the same time, but they such a tough time constraint because they can't move slowly because they're just going to get kited around the arena, so they need these Confessors to go in and tackle something, but they don't want the Confessors to get too far ahead of anything else. So it's very, very difficult for them to execute.
Yeah, so NC is having the Jackdaw lagging behind, and he's taking damage. He's in a vulnerable position. The Entropic Thunder did lose the Punisher, so there's already 2 tackle ships going down. Meantime, the NC team having all their ships.
Yeah, and it's going to be really, really hard for Entropic Thunder to get on top of them if these Confessors go down. I also just wanted to note that they only brought Prophecy for Lynx, which is quite an unusual ship. We don't see that particularly often. The Tech 1 battlecruiser, I'm going to assume he has 2 or 3 Lynx fitted, I think. Is that the maximum you can fit on a Tech 1 battlecruiser? Obviously slightly weaker than a command ship, cheaper in points as well. But yeah, it's not something we see very often, but he potentially could be, like, for example, Newt fit in the high slots. But yeah, these Confessors are so critical to this match, and the second one of Etria is now taking chunks as well. And Daniel Sunkist is not able to keep him alive, and he goes down.
Yeah, at this point, it's looking really, really bad for the Entropic Thunder. They are losing these small ships, and yeah, they're losing to this rapid heavy and rapid light missile ships. This is like the least thing you want to see. We rely on these small ships to get tackled. At this point, like the Lashaks are trying to burn in and trying to get in shooting range, and we're seeing one being far behind. Maybe he tried some MJD things, but he landed so out of position. And the Prophecy is in close, but I'm not sure if he can actually get tackled on something long enough for the Lashaks to do that work.
Yeah, we've seen
bomber going down.
We've seen quite a few bombers so far today. I just wanted to talk about that a little bit more. I think we saw 3 of them fielded by TNT, who then rather swiftly lost as well. And I think just bringing bombers in general is such a huge risk because there's so many ships in the meta that are good that can apply to them. And NC Dot seem to have brought basically all of them. They've brought Jackdaw, Orthrus, Cerberus, Gilas as well. Like I said, all these things absolutely munch through bombers. They devour them for breakfast. And of course, bombers apply best to battleships, but this doesn't seem so far to be a battleship-focused meta. In the last Alliance tournament, as I say this, the Aneros is taking chunks, and Daniel Sunkist is probably not long for this world. But in the last Alliance tournament, it seemed to be a 3 battleship meta where you had Vindicator, you had Lashak, and you had Balgon. But with the flagship rule changes, resist rule changes, various changes since then, it seems to be more command ship focused, and bombers slightly less effective against that kind of meta.
Yeah, and at this point, like Jackdaw of Kutana did take some armor damage, but is getting reps again and getting out of shooting range. So it's going to look like a clean sweep for the NC team. So even though our nerds at the desk might have called them rusty, they did actually manage to execute this well. They kited well and managed to take out these tackle ship. It's a good call, target calling as well. And at this point, like, they just need to clean up these Leshaks. Like the Drake Navy of DB Blue is taking shield damage, but I think he can just catch reps and then tank.
Yeah, this is all she wrote in this match, at least, for Entropic Thunder. But I just wanted to talk a little bit more about the comps, because I feel like this Entropic Thunder squad is the whole comp is so reliant on getting on top of something. And if you come up against this shield comp, I mean, you've got to expect it at this point. These shield comps are so prevalent. They're absolutely ubiquitous. Everyone is flying these kind of ships, all through Skeelers, etc. And if you haven't got the control to get on top of them with these Lashaks, it's going to be very, very difficult to actually make a meaningful dent in them. And so I was just wondering what you thought about the comp. What would you switch out if you were going to switch anything?
Like I think the first thing they should have switched out is their bands. They have left all these anti-frigate ships open. Like looking at the bands, the Entropic Thunder band, the Nighthawk, the Loki, and the Sleipnir. So they left all these rapid light ships open, and this just invites someone to pick up the tackle wing, and it just is exactly what happened. You didn't have your logic, so your support wing, it wasn't protected. There's nothing to keep them alive. I'm not sure if they had that many guidance disruptors. But that is also a thing they could have done, swapped some of the ships for something with the guidance disruptors, and that could have prevented the authors and stuff to shoot that far, to apply that well. But at this point, like, we see they make a mistake, and now they're paying for it. And the NC dot did lose a Drake Navy issue. Like, they're not as tanky as the Nighthawks, but they certainly did well in this matchup. And that's also one thing we can talk about, Drake Navy issues versus Nighthawks. Nighthawks are known to be these really strong ballers with strong links, but the Drake Navy issue can be rather good kiting ships with the heavy missiles, and they got the application bonus, so they just making them even stronger against small ships.
Yeah, I completely agree, especially about the bands as well. I think they're scared. We saw in the Alliance Open last year that Nighthawk Loki was like the favored archetype, but clearly you can just sub these things out. There's so many different options. And with that, NC are going to take a commanding victory over Entropic Thunder, who will go down into the lower bracket. And with that, we will send it back to the studio.